What's up, guys? Brandon Miller with Prime Focus Goalkeeping, and you're looking at our first episode of the Training Ground series, our Training Ground analysis. We're going to talk about different parts of our training preparation, how we get ready for training, how we get ready for games. We'll do some video analysis for training and games as well. So I also want to introduce you guys to Coach Nate Walser from the Charlotte Independence. He is an integral part of our goalkeeping core, and he's going to be a huge part of our training analysis series. So without further ado, I'm going to let Coach Walser take over and lead us into the first part of the session, or our first video.
Awesome. Thanks, Brandon, for having me. I'm really looking forward to this and taking what we do on the training ground, bringing it out to everybody else to see, to kind of get in the mind of what goes on in the coach's mind, the player's mind, and everything all around. So without further ado, we'll get into our first session. And as we go through here, I'll share the screen and I'll show you guys some things that we put into place as coaches into our periodization and curriculum and what part of the season we're in and how we design our sessions. So I'll share my screen here. And this, what's up, Brandon? You got something?
Before we get into it too deep, can you explain to them what periodization is?
Absolutely. So periodization is how we break up the season, how we decide what we want to train, when we want to train it, how we load the keepers up physically, tactically, technically, how we cover all these different aspects to make sure that we're covering wide ranges of everything and not just doing a session to do a session. We want to make sure that everything builds on everything. Everything prepares our goalkeeping core for each game. And that way we're on track with it and not just, again, doing random sessions all the time.
That's a big thing for me. I know you work with some of the youth goalkeepers as well, and I work with some youth goalkeepers as well. So a lot of times goalkeepers don't know why they're doing things in session, out of session, or preparing for a session. They don't know why they're doing things, and so I want goalkeepers to get an idea of, you talk about periodization, not just something that's done at the professional level, right? It's done at multiple levels, and so I want the viewers to get an understanding that they need to understand why they're doing certain things, so that they know what their development path looks like.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a good point, and I think it's important that all goalkeepers ask why. I think it's good that keepers ask questions, and they should always be. It shouldn't just be do what your coach tells you and just get into it. It's got to be, why are we doing this? How does it apply to my game? How does it help me? And those questions are important, because the more we learn in the position and as coaches and as everyone, the more we're going to be able to do what the coaches want and and execute it to how it applies to our matches. So I think that's a really good point there.
All right, let's get into it.
All right. So I'll share my screen, and this session was one of the sessions that we ran on June 9th, and it was a session coming right off of COVID. It was the second day that we were back together again, so we kind of took a long hiatus, which was a bit strange. And so we kind of gone through a preseason, played a game, and then took a month off, and all of a sudden now we are back in another preseason cycle. And in here, we break everything down, and there's a lot of different categories that we look at as coaches when we're trying to break the session down. We want to make sure what part of the season are we making the session plan in. And so for this one, it says late preseason there, spelling error on my part, but it's the early preseason for us. And what we do in the early preseason and late preseason are entirely different, from a fitness standpoint, from a mental standpoint, and even from a technique standpoint. So to start it, we look at a bunch of different things, and we talk about in the goalkeepers game model, different areas, and I'll talk a little bit about that. But in this session, it was, like I said, it was our second day back. The first day we had done a session focused on handling and diving and a bit of shot stopping, but a lot of it in the beginning is about moving and finding angles and being comfortable on the ball again. So in this one, I have this little picture here illustrating it. And it's something to how we play. And in the second session, I wanted to get away from just handling shot stopping, but now how do we build out of the back as a team? And can we go from in possession actions to out of possession actions? And in this little illustration here, it's really quick, but it shows you in possession, getting a pass back pretty deep, having to play out, And what we see here is, I know this clip, it went on, you played out, everything was good. But what if we turned the ball over? What if there was a loss of possession? What if there was actions that changed that made us have to readjust our positioning? And those are the in possession, out of possession things that I like to cover. And so when we talk about our defensive task, which is the main focus of the session, we split that up into 3 different areas of the field. And when we talk about the field, we'll either defend the goal, we'll defend the area, or defend the space. And when we talk about defending space, maybe that's staying connected to your back line or dealing with through balls. Defending the area, maybe through balls to one-on-ones or crosses. And defending on the goal are going to be shot-stopping actions, headers, close-range shots. And so we always look at what part of the field first that we want to deal with. And then as we go back in, we're going to talk about the in possession, out of possession, and you'll see that in the session. But we always have a physical attribute that we want to cover, whether it's the speed of the action or an effective movement, or moving up the line or moving down the line. And those are some of the things that we'll see. We talk about the phase of the game. And so something in this one most specifically is I want to talk about the adjustment phase in this. On the first day, we were more in the action phase and the preparation phase. But in the adjustment phase here, you see this graphic will start with the preparation phase. And this is when the goalie's getting ready. It's when they're providing supportive solutions and everything. And then you go into the action phase where you're making a save. So before that, you have those small movements. And in this, it may be the movement going from in possession to our pass to being out of possession. Now I have to find my ball line. And so a lot of this session focuses on how we adjust within the goal, which I think is really important. And we talk about that quite often. And then lastly, if I can get there, we'll talk, and then we go into so what's our main topic? Our main topic today is it's a shot stopping session. We want to focus on our handling more specifically. When we position, there's going to be a lot of recovery movements. So our movements down the line. And then when we distribute, we're going to talk about playing around or building to unbalance, which we always try to put a passing type scenario within our sessions. So that'll kind of be a little bit of a description of kind of what we'll talk about there, and we will get straight into the session now. So I wanted to leave in the activation and all the stretching and stuff that we do, because I think it's really important. It's something that we spend a lot of time doing. It's something to make sure that the goalkeepers are ready. And with you and Austin and our goalkeeping core, we have guys who are veterans in the league. They've been around a long time. So it's really important for me to make sure that your bodies feel 100%. And so with the help of our strength and conditioning coach, Cam Miller, we spend a ton of time putting together exercises to make sure that there's a steady progression for you guys getting ready and that you feel good for the session. So in this one, we start off with an activation. We'll do a little bit of mobility work. We'll get into our dynamic. And then some sessions we'll maybe do some core exercise, some reactions, or some neural activation. And for you younger goalkeepers out there, the neural activation, it's just an exercise to get the mind working, something about timing, to get the synapses firing. And it may be an exercise where you go out to touch a colored cone and you come back, or it may be doing drop lands or tall drops, something of this. So in this one, it's our second day back. So we're starting off on the ground, and we start off nice and slow. We start off stretching the back. We're doing some side lying windmills just to open up some shoulder mobility, loosen up the lower back. And then almost every day we go into some band work. And I think band work is important just to get things firing. Today we did it with the upper body, and we combined some lower body components, but we're just doing some banded pull aparts and some banded pull throughs. And for goalkeepers, having bulletproof shoulders is extremely important. And so you see us kind of work through our progression, work through our mobility movements as we get going. And Brandon, for you, how does it feel as a goalkeeper kind of doing all these exercises? Because I know as a coach, and I'm like, all right, it's got to be good. Let's do it. Sometimes as a goalkeeper, it may be a little bit of a different mentality.
I think it's important for especially the younger viewers to understand is like, I think it's key for me you have to be prepared, and physically to be prepared you have to be prepared mentally, you have to be prepared physically, and to just hop straight into goal, it may be a lot easier when you're younger. It's something that you're used to, but to properly, like you said, get everything firing, make sure all aspects of your body are working. Like, these are the little things that need to be done, for 10, 15, 20 minutes before a full session gets going. And so for me, I prefer doing it every single day, just because it's where I feel most prepared. And I think, I guess a question I would have for you is, like, for the younger goalkeepers who may not have a goalkeeper coach who's going to put them through this, or you may not have the time. Like, you show up to goalkeeper practice for your youth club, and you starts at 6, you get there at 5:55. Like, how does a younger goalkeeper take what we do in 20 minutes and break it down into something that's going to help them be prepared in, say, 5 to 7 minutes?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's great. It's everything that we do. I think we take our time. We really go slow through it, and we have 20 minutes to do it, and we have 15 minutes most of the time. For a younger goalkeeper that shows up to training, first and foremost, can you get there 10 to 15 minutes before? A lot of you guys don't drive, so that's not always going to be possible. We're kind of still live on mom and dad's schedule. So when you get to training, it's super important to find moments within your session, and maybe it's the beginning of the session, to do some things. And you do it at times where we'll be doing volleys, and maybe you have a rotation that's out, and you'll walk over and grab a mini band, and you'll continue your warm up as you're going. So it's about finding little moments in the beginning of the session, but it's also about having a routine. And having a routine is really important, because you know your body better than anyone else. So if you know these are the 3 exercises that really engage me, that really get me feeling fired up, then those are the things that you kind of stick with. But for me, those are the 2 things that are really important.
Yeah, I would really echo that, the sentiment of having a routine. It's not just physical, but also mentally, knowing that you're prepared, you've done everything that you need to do, you've reached every target muscle group that you're trying to hit in order to be fully prepared for training. That routine is key, both mentally and physically.
Yeah, for sure. And so, kind of moving on in this warm up, we start to get into a little bit of some movement prep. And what we were focusing on here is a big lateral push. And we're going to combine this with another lateral push and a forward movement after, but it gets us activated for some of the movements that we're going to do in the first exercise when we go out. So here, they're just in between cones, concentrating on, from a set position, pushing with that outside foot. In my opinion, the outside foot is where you're going to get almost all of your drive laterally from. Obviously, your power step is going to aid you in pushing up, or maybe helping you to push further out. But the initial movement starts with that outside foot. So if we can get that outside foot firing and pushing us across, that's going to help us. As we moved into this next movement, we start with a tall drop, which is part of our neural activation. And once you land, there's a quick lateral push to a forward push. And as you watch Brandon and Austin go here, really good timing. Once they land, then they're able to push forward. And this movement here, just this little tall drop, is so good. And a lot of coaches think it's for landing mechanics and things like that, but it really has nothing to do with that. It's about moving, getting your brain firing, landing in the proper technique with the entire body, not just the legs. From there, how do we drive off that outside foot? And then when we land, can we accelerate forward?
I think that it's interesting, because I feel like especially when I was growing up, it was more so about the inside foot pushing, that step and that powerful step. But what I've noticed over the past couple of years is, as from coaching and from playing, is like that the massive importance of that outside foot being able to push off, because that's where, like you said, that's where you get a lot of that push, especially for balls that are maybe not you're at full stretch, but like balls that you have to push off and dive for. That outside foot is a huge push that you need. If you don't have that push, then a lot of times you end up just falling over. And then, once you get the full stretch, you need that step and that push from that inside foot as well. But that outside foot plays such a key role in a lot of the shots that you deal with, because a lot of the shots you deal with are within a 3 to 4 yard area. And so it's not always that full stretch where you have to use your footwork and full explosiveness.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, every situation is so different in what we do. Sometimes you don't have time to do it. Sometimes you may be in an uncomfortable position. You may be all over the place. And I think you make a good point. It's that outside foot's like, it's the initiation. It's what
Right.
starts the power. And then your inside foot or your power step, maybe that helps you to explode up to that top corner just to get a little bit of a vertical push. Maybe it's a really big push and you can use that to kind of propel yourself a little bit further. But I mean, there's even times where, and we'll see it later in some of the clips, where it's a ball that's a low ball that might be right next to our ankle on the outside. Well, sometimes you don't have time to move your feet, and it's about using that push and almost taking that power step and just bringing it inside and falling to the ground, because you don't
Exactly.
necessarily need it all the time. And so that's a big piece for me. So as we progress into this, and then here's a little piece that I love to add into it. And we do a few different things with handling and core and mobility, where it's a really simple side plank. And with the side plank, it's just simply activating the core, making sure, again, we're strengthening our body through movement. We're using it as a handling exercise, and maybe at times you could use it as to bring your top hand across when you're doing some power dives, if we're pairing it into a goal or parrying it. But I think in this one, with this exercise, it's just being relaxed and focusing on the ball and being tight. I don't know if have you ever done any hard style planks? Do you know what that is?
No.
So it's you start a workout and you get into plank position, and you hold that plank as hard as you possibly can while activating all your muscles for 10 seconds. And it seems really simple, but it's one of the best total body activations that you can do, because you have to fire everything to be ready. It's not just one muscle or another. This is a really similar thing, because just being in that side plank, your legs are activated, your hips are doing something, your glutes are firing, your core is firing, your shoulders working. So it adds just a little bit of everything, and we're being able to strengthen and get some handling as well.
I think on top of it being an activation exercise, like for me, I use these exercises, one, to work on my hand-eye coordination, and two, a big thing for me is just being able to control a ball, and having the confidence. Like the single-handed control naturally leads into, if my right hand can control the ball well, my left hand can control the ball well. When I'm catching a ball, I can control the ball well, right? So if I can do it with single hand, then it becomes a lot easier double hand. So it just makes it getting goalkeepers comfortable with the ball, with their hands in every aspect, two-handed, one-handed. I find it important for me.
Yeah, and again, it goes back to, for me as a goalkeeper coach, it's what do my keepers want? Because at the end of the day, my number one job is to make sure that you feel good, you're comfortable, you're confident within your body, you're confident moving and seeing the ball. It My job isn't, I haven't done my job if you aren't feeling good. And so we talk a lot. I ask you all the time, probably too much, how are you feeling? How are you feeling? And at times it's like, dude, leave me alone, I feel fine. And at times it's like, yo, I'm sore. I want to spend a little bit more time doing this. And so through my pursuit of constantly bugging and asking how good you are, I take those little cues and say, all right, well, maybe we can do this for a little bit longer and we can do that. And so for me, it's really important to get that feedback.
You ask me how I'm feeling more than my girlfriend does.
I know. I care, and that's all. It goes back. What do you want? Some guys, your coaching staff and team. You want guys who care, and I'll never let that go. I always care, and so we'll ask, and yeah. And so we'll move on with the session. And in this next progression, it's just getting moving and getting handling. We use it as a movement skill, and in this next exercise, its simplicity to me is its importance. We talk about movements and being able to do movements, and we'll see them later on. But in this one, a lot of things happen. You'll see movements where you're moving forward to get set for the ball, or otherwise we like to say movement up the line. You'll see a movement where you're recovering, so it'll be a recovery down the line. You'll see a lateral push, so it's just a lateral movement to stay balanced. And so in goalkeeping, it's so important to be comfortable in every single movement because there's so many infinite possibilities of positions that we can find ourselves in. And so as we go through this exercise, Brandon will step forward into a set position. I'll volley a ball into him, and then he'll move quickly laterally through the hurdles, and then Austin will give him a second service. And a lot of this with what we see in these sets, is he reading the ball? Is he moving efficiently? And every time, what I love is look at the focus. So even when we're in our set position here, eyes are locked in the ball. And we can break some other things down, but it's compact, it's confident, it's composed, he's relaxed. And a big thing for me right now is set position. I think it can get drilled to death right now by coaches, and there's finding a balance. When you were growing up, was set position and was that like a huge buzzword?
Yeah, it was always something I struggled with. I remember I started off. I felt like I had probably like 3 or 4 different goalkeeper coaches in the span of like 3 or 4 years, and so it was just like I felt like I was getting different information from different people. But I always struggled with: am I set too high? Am I set too low? Like, am I crouching down too low? Where are my hands? So I went from like setting really straight up and having my hands pretty low to setting a lot lower, pretty much in a squat, and having my hands out a bit more. And so I feel like it's taken some time to really develop my set position. And I feel like I still tweak it at times now, but yeah, set position was definitely something that was always hammered in.
And I like that you say you tweak it. Do you tweak it like on a daily basis, on a weekly? Is it how your body feels on the day? Maybe that changes. What are some things that change for you, and what are some things that you focus on?
I would say it's a lot of it's how the session's going. I mean, we've talked about it in terms of my hand positioning. Sometimes, if I feel like my hands are getting caught too low, I'll consciously, tell myself, "Hey, get your hands out, get your hands out." So even in basic handling drills like this, the focus is getting my hands up and a bit more active instead of, down towards my thighs. But there's also, I mean, we'll see it in later clips, just how I tend to sink down a little bit, and then I feel like it inhibits me from exploding up a little bit more,
Mm-hmm.
because I get caught down in that set position. Or there's times where I tend to pop up. So I would say it's more so how the session's going. I'm not saying I'm making any major changes where, I'm hands are 2 feet higher than they usually are, or like my feet are in tighter or anything like that. But it's just little focus. So if I notice that little things are happening that are causing me to, drop a ball or not be able to move my feet, then I actively do my best to adjust those within the session.
Cool. So as we go through these first 5 balls, and obviously you've watched a lot of these clips, I want you to tell me some things that you're thinking of as it's going through, like as a player, and I know what I'm looking at. As a player, what are some things that you look for as you review your film, and then as you think about you dealing with the service?
The big thing for me, especially here, is just my feet being set when you're striking, but also looking at me popping up a lot when that ball comes in, trying to avoid that big pop up and fall backwards kind of movement where my chest comes up and my weight goes backwards. And then I would say that the last major thing is my feet going from in to out, going from like a good set position to what is commonly called like an A set position, I guess.
Yep.
My feet going too wide, which then inhibits my lateral movement. So those are the main things I'm thinking about.
Yeah, those are great. I'm glad I asked you that before I started talking, because it's always good to hear you first. And those are the first things for me. As we break this down and we go nice and slow, and it's a lot of it is timing. And so with that being said, I was listening to something the other day, and it was a podcast, and someone was saying, "What are your thoughts on set position?" And it was it was Franz Hoek. And he said, "I don't believe in set position because there's never a thing. People don't actually do it, and they're always moving." And a part of my belief disagrees with it, but do you think it's really important to focus on that actual set position, or do you naturally make corrections as you're going. Does that make sense what I'm asking? So it takes
Yeah.
time, like, go on.
I know. I think the major thing for me is being able to react.
Yeah.
And so I feel like if my feet aren't in the ground, if I haven't like slowed my momentum, my movement down, then that's when, sometimes ball gets hit to my right, my feet move to the left, and I'm not reacting immediately to the ball. So I would understand what he's saying, 'cause I agree. A lot of the stuff that I do with a lot of the younger goalkeepers I work with, there's constant movement throughout the game, right? There's hardly ever a time where you're, set in one position. The striker takes the touch and hits the ball, right? There's always some type of movement, and your body is always trying to move. So the big thing for me is slowing your body down as much as possible, so I can react to the ball instead of my reactions going other ways.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good point. And as you look into this, and this is something that we'll kind of talk about as a trend, and a few pieces, this first part's pretty clean, but a few pieces to pick apart. I'm going to really go through it slow. And I think something with the timing of our set position, I think we can kind of continue to focus on. So as I strike this ball, I've hit it, and you're in the air still, about to come down. So in here, I'm hitting the ball, you're still up in the air. So now when you land right then, it's an announce service, so you know it's coming straight at you. But as you land, the ball's almost halfway to you, maybe quarter of the way to you. So I think it reduces the reaction time. And I think the second piece that you talked about was just staying upright. You get a little upright, your hips come forward, the shoulders come back. And we'll see it a little bit later on in how it translates into some of the shot stopping. My favorite rep, and this is something that I've noticed that you do quite a bit, your last rep on every single set, you catch the ball, you focus, and you are absolutely eyes glued on the ball. And you take a second or two to do it. And I don't know whether you're consciously eyes focused through the ball all the way to the end, or it's just that. And through some of the reps, you go pretty quick. And then at the last rep, it's always catch, eyes on the ball. And I like these reps on this side here, because as you see it, you come across and the feet are moving. But again, we can see in this one, and it's just a small piece, but it comes to later. You come into it, as Austin strikes it, you're going to jump, and then you land as the ball's getting halfway. So that's when your jump set to your set, then you land about when the ball's halfway, that's when your feet are making the initial. You have really good reactions and you know where the ball's going, but maybe does that slow it down when we're starting to extend?
So then how do we fix that?
So I think there's a few different ways. One is it's just the timing. So if you're going to jump set, that's fine, but doing it a little bit earlier. If he's striking, I've got to be in that set where I want to begin with. Another piece that I've done for me personally with helped is, instead of going into a big jump set, it's almost, you're just lifting your toes off the ground and you're not changing your feet position. So it's feet are in the ground, and instead of jumping to change feet, I'm just coming slightly off my toes. And that way it still gives me that up, I'm down, but I'm still connected to the ground the entire time. But for me, I don't think we're gonna really change the whole technique. It's pretty specific. I think we just have to get the timing of when the jump set hit the ground, and when you hit that ground, that's when the service is starting to come. Would be
I think it's interesting. I don't really notice myself doing a lot of jump setting, but like you say, you look at the video and you see the feet come off the ground a little bit more than even I'm noticing.
Mm-hmm. And this is a really minute situation here, but I think we'll see it when we progress later on, and there'll be certain moments that it happens more often than not, and I'll kind of point those moments out. And there is another one I want to go back and talk about, and I don't know, it may be the angle, it may be this, but as you look in this one, and on the opposite side, you make your catch here, and on this side, you push off, but it's almost like your right foot goes a little bit backwards there. You see that?
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's almost like when you start behind the hurdle and you step backwards before you step forward. Is it being efficient with our footwork? I don't know. And I'll bring it back to the other side just so we hear, when you see it on this side, it's there, and then it's a quick step across. There's no step backwards. So we're in here, you get set, then the first step is a push, and the step's already going out across your body. And so on the next one, we look at it. And you see the step, it's there. And then the first step, instead of it being that foot coming out a little bit more, it's almost like that step steps behind the foot a little bit. And I started to notice watching the video, you like to push off your right foot more than your left, I think. And
Right.
maybe for me, I think you're more comfortable going to your left side than your right side because of that.
Right.
And
That's
maybe
interesting. That's not something I've ever noticed, but I talk to my goalkeepers all the time about efficient footwork, right? And those are little things that we talk about. Not, if I'm going to my right side, my first step needs to be more explosive to my right as opposed to stepping back and then going to my right.
Yeah.
So the little things that may not seem big, but can have an effect when you get into the larger picture of the goal and you're having to deal with, half a yard, it's inches.
goalkeeping is a game of inches. And so just having that, maybe that split second, that getting that little extra push, that little extra thing gets your fingertip on the ball, gets it off the post. And instead of it, maybe a fingertip and I just can't get enough and it goes in the net. So those are things that, and you as a goalkeeper, you're very diligent in those and you're very responsible about paying attention to little things. And you see it in the way that you carry yourself and the way that you do with your set position and the way your movements. You're always really focused on it. And we'll start to see it in this a little bit more as the session progresses. Start to look at the jump set forward, maybe a jump set back, and then maybe an A set after. So now we're setting multiple times. And give me your feedback after a little bit.
So I see what you're saying with the jump backwards there. I feel like that happens a lot more when it's that basket catch, because I have to send my body backwards in order to catch it. Because if I stay upright there, then I'm basically giving it a brick wall, the ball to come into. Whereas I'm trying to cushion that ball in a bit more on the basket catch.
Yeah, and I think that's a fair point. And it goes back to what you said a little bit with the basket catch. Your hips are going to fly backwards. It's a comfortable catch, so you're going to be jumping. So it definitely happens. And I like, as we progress in through this, I like this next exercise. So we start to add the recovery movement towards it. And so after you make your catch, you'll pop out maybe into a cutback situation, or maybe it's a supportive solution out into the wide area where you're supporting a pass back, but then you have to recover back central to get ready for it. And in these moments, we've spent a lot of time. Oh, I skipped it. So we're just dealing with the low ball before the recovery. But in these moments, we spent a lot of time. So this is going to be the one where we deal with the recovery. He catches it. He's out in a recovery, drop step, and he's back in. And with these low balls, we've spent a ton of time dissecting this and spending time about forward momentum. And you can see it on that one. Little jump, not a big deal. And then as you come across, really simple, really clean technique. And one of the big things, and so on this one, we're in the air, we land, that's when you land there. And the ball's almost into your hands, and it's a little bit out to the side. And is that a bad service? Potentially. Is it within your bubble? In a normal situation, could you catch that? 100%. Do I serve it too early? I don't know. And maybe those are some of the timing questions. But I think this is a good example of, as you come through, bang, can we set there? Because I think your width in your feet, your body position, everything's pretty good. Then we add another movement, and then by the time you land, I've struck it, and it may be a little bit too quick. I don't know.
No, I think that I wouldn't say that's more service. I think that's more so you're right. I step in. It's not really a jump in, but my movement's going from up to down, landing there, and then I'm popping back up to then move again once the ball is being struck. So I think it's eliminating that move, that second pop up, that second little hop, in order to be able to just have my feet set, get focused, and focused on the ball and where that's.
Yeah. And I think I love this example. And this is a question that we've talked about a little bit. And we have other keepers that sometimes join the group and they make a mistake and their heads go. And even the simplest thing in training, where we've talked about it, for you, how do you not make where that happened? Okay, it's behind me. How do you not make it 2, 3, 4 different actions? Because I think that's something that you do extremely well. One mistake is one mistake.
Yeah, I mean, I talk about it with youth goalkeepers all the time, and it's a bit different with youth goalkeepers because they don't have, obviously 9 years of playing experience. But for me, my sessions are about limiting mistakes. Obviously, I want to improve every day. I want to work on the little things, but it's physically, it's mentally, it's impossible for me to be perfect. So like, I know mistakes are going to happen, but it's about limiting those mistakes, and it's about how we react to those mistakes. Like I tell goalkeepers all the time, like especially with youth goalkeepers, when they make a mistake, they tend to, stop. They tend to be like, oh, why'd I do that? Or they like, and especially in a drill like this where you're taking 2 balls, if they drop that first one, then they literally just stop. And I always say, like, in a game, when a striker shoots one at you and you bobble it, and you give up a rebound, are you going to stop and look around and ask what happened? No, you're going to respond. You're going to move onto the next action and clean up that mistake. And so that's kind of the mentality I have, is like, I don't want mistakes to happen. I want to limit mistakes as much as possible. That's my goal, but they are going to happen. So I can either respond to them positively, move on to the next rep and make the next rep good, or I can, dwell on that, which is not something I think is very successful. So the big thing for me is how you move on, and how you react to that next rep.
Yeah, and it's a great message, because even in a simple exercise like this, that has a lot of application, it's again, it starts with teaching the mental side of the game and the psychological side, which doesn't get nearly enough attention. So even in here, you can take that piece, and it translates into life and little things. So I think that's a really awesome point that you make through that. And I've kind of let it play as we were talking. And again, we're kind of moving through this little recovery movements and really simple technique. And we'll talk about this. And this is something that we've talked about a ton, which as you go into this recovery movement, how efficient your footwork is here is excellent. So it's a little push. And as he comes across, his feet are starting to get parallel. So you haven't moved backwards. You've moved forwards as you've gotten in here. And with this, you can see your hips are pushed back, your shoulders are forward, your chin's ready. Your hands are a little bit further back. And at times you'll hear me yelling at you, push your elbows forward, push your elbows. And it doesn't catch up in this particular point because it's a really good catch, but there's times where maybe the elbow gets caught underneath the side a little bit where we just want to clear that. But in here, we've spent a lot of times, and it's just really simple technique, and just hammering this down is something I think that we've progressed in quite a bit in the last few months.
And so, yeah, I'd agree. It's definitely what I'm more conscious of when taking low balls, is my hand positioning, my movement off the line, and where my elbows are, and not getting stuck underneath me, or doing my best to push my hands out there.
And I think it says, and it shows when you do an action like this and you come across, because as you come across, you're even changing levels. So you're changing levels to push through the ball. And as you push through it, it's not like you're hitting the ball and just stopping. There's still power there. And so I'm hitting it. And as you hit the ground, there's a little bit of a slide. So there's momentum. And I always say, go through the ball, not to it. You don't want to land and just hit there. It's really driving through the ball. And it connects when you start to get in the air and really fly through it. So that's a good moment for me. And then we start to progress into goal. And we spend a lot of time doing technical work. I think there has to be a really good balance between doing technical work and getting in the goal for what are somewhat game-based scenarios. I would say in the COVID period, it's tough to do a ton of game-based stuff with you, because as we finish here, you guys are going down onto the field and getting beat up probably a bit too much with a ton of shots. So the more true game-based scenarios and the better game-based scenarios for you are going to be when you're with players that are playing the game at your level. In my opinion, a game-based scenario we can recreate, but if I'm shooting on you, it's not game-based. It's got to be Enzo firing a ball at you. It's got to be Dane firing a ball at you. So we can get in the game, create a pattern or something that may happen and get those guys to shoot. That's great. When we're in our isolated area, we have to try to recreate that as much as possible. And as we get into kind of the meat of the session here, in our in possession, out of the possession segment, I like to put this together because I like to think about how we try to play as a team as well. It's not just, all right, we play possession, we do this. Maybe some teams don't possess. So as you don't need to train, not that you don't need to train it as much, but there has to be importance on hitting different types of balls. As a team, and you saw in the session plan earlier, we're in a lot of situations where you have to play out deep. Maybe you get a pass back in front of your goal. Maybe it's not a great pass back that you have to deal with in front of your goal, which certainly happens. You have to be able to deal with it. And what happens if we turn the ball over? And there's little things and that's why I like this exercise here, because it's a quick little back set. You have to receive a ball in the face of your goal, but then you also have to come across the goal to receive a strike from a central area. And there's a lot of things. When you're in an exercise like this, what are some things that you think about as a keeper?
For me, it's just the transition from spot to spot. Like you said, we're playing out, and we talk about putting in game situations. Like it's just thinking about what the game situation is here. Like I get a pass back, I take my touch out. Maybe I play a poor ball that's intercepted by the other team, and immediately first time the ball's been played back across the goal, right? So now I have to drop back in, find my set position, and deal with a strike. So like we talked about, goalkeepers asking why you're doing certain things. Like this is a game type scenario that happens plenty of times, whether it's me turning the ball over, whether it's my center back or outside back or whoever I played the ball to turning the ball over. Transitions happen quick. And the key thing is getting to your spot and getting set and being ready for the strike, as opposed to I take that touch, I play it out there, and then I lollygag out there, then the ball gets played across. Well, I'm caught on my left side of my goal without any ability to cover the full goal. So just moving through this is just a clean first touch, play a good ball, and then transition and get back to the spot where I can deal with a strike.
That's great. And it ties back into the session plan. When we talked about the action that we wanted, or the physical action that we wanted to focus on the speed of our action. So now it's pass. How fast can I get back into the goal? And then there's little nuances that you definitely talk about when we talk. And it's when you get set, it's not just being set, but what's my depth? How am I reacting to the shooter? Is he shooting early? Do I need to get set? Is he, in this situation, obviously it's a bit more announced. I let you get set, but it changes where you get set and when you get set and with your feet position. So I think you've done a good job lately to really focus on the depth of your positioning. And that's something in this that I know in this one for sure. And then the next one, you'll definitely focus more on. And as you get that pass back, we talk putting the ball in the direction of where we want to play. And that's something that we continue to talk about, because when that ball dies, that's when the other team starts to cut off our passing options. So when we push it out to the side, can we play in a direction? And maybe I push it left, but I can still play to my right and cut the ball against the grain. So it forces them to make different decisions. And you see, there's times where the ball gets stuck under your foot, and it's going to happen in a game, and it's going to happen. And you do a good job to focus on that, to one action to the next action, get back in and get set. And so here, as you come across, really simple action, good clean handling, not one single mistake in 10 balls. And so that's a really series of good actions. And then as we progress it, we go from having to play that to where I hit a stationary ball, which is announced, to now let's progress it a little bit more into a game-like situation. So now as he plays it out, he comes and gets set to me again. I play a ball out to Austin to where he used to readjust his position again and then be ready for a shot. And in this, you'll start to see the depth of his shot, set positions. And now in this first clip especially, I want you to look at the jump set. I want you to look at that near foot, the power step how you push off into that, and some body position, and I'll get your opinion of it. And I'll slow it down. And so everybody knows that's a fingertip save off the post, massive save. But obviously, not a big deal. But as we get set here, Austin's taking his touch, and he is about 12 yards out. As he strikes this, we leave our feet again. So we're in the air right now. In the air, in the air, in the air, set. So now the ball is halfway there already. Good set. And this may be totally off topic. What is your thought on changing your set position from balls from central angles to wide angles?
I don't know if I think it's more so the distance from the striker as opposed to the angle. Because I know what you're saying.
And every goalkeeper is a little different. Some people change their set positions for wide shots. I'm not saying you do it. Maybe it's just a food for thought, something that maybe people didn't know keepers did.
I've never really thought about it, but for me, I would say I change my set position here to be a bit lower because Austin's in a bit closer.
Yeah.
Right. And so I want to get down quicker to anything down to my sides. But I do, so I see what you're saying in terms of there's a lot of movement up, down, up, down. And you see it a bit in the volleying that we saw earlier, and then you see it a lot here. So my thought process here is when I'm getting set, when I pop down to that position, it's like I want to be set there, but then I tend to rise up a little bit, and I think that's some of the issue with some of the goals that I tend to give up sometimes is especially getting beat down to my side, is that last little pop up, I'm moving up while that ball's being struck down side, and so then it takes longer for me to get down and make that save.
And I think it goes with we talk about super strengths with goalkeepers, and maybe we haven't had this conversation quite as much, but every keeper, in my opinion, is a super strength. And one of your super strengths is your shot stopping ability. And you have this ability to get to things, whether you move quickly, you're in the right position, sometimes you're out of position, but you make saves. And even in this one, we talk about it. You see the ball's halfway there. You're just getting set now. It's a shot right on the inside of the post, but you have that ability to get to it. And so I think at times we focus on the technique and we can make it better, but I want to keep improving your super strength. And to me, again, that's your shot stopping ability. And so as we continue with this breakdown, now the next piece is as you push off that outside foot, that inside foot, it steps in front. So there's really no push there. There's really nothing there. Maybe if you're set a little bit earlier, you can do it. But as you step in front, I don't know if that foot does anything. It's almost to clear it out of the way so that you can move. Can it help if you stay, and at times, in my opinion, when you step outside your body line with that first step, that's when your shoulders pop up and your shoulders pop out. And when I mean that, instead of that really big positive first touch, I think first step, that step can be to the side, but it's really important where the shoulders are and where the hips are. Because if the step's to the side and the shoulders are far forward and the hips are back, it's going to naturally keep you positive. If you take that step forward and then the shoulders pop backwards, I think you lose a little bit of that positive or that sideways momentum to really get to that. And again, is there enough time to react? Is there enough time to push off? Every situation's a little bit different, and I don't want to be overcritical here because we make the save, but I think at times we can get a little bit more out of that power step as well with that. And then again, that save.
I remember making the save, and I remember thinking right afterwards, like, was my angle off? Because I remember, like, I felt like I was in a good position, but then I tipped it and it went off the post, and I felt like, I mean, it was a well-struck ball. There was a decent amount of pace on it, but I felt like
from 12 yards out as well. I mean, our area is not very big.
I think from that angle, I felt like I should have gotten a full hand or even possible two hands on it. But I think it's that movement up and down that's causing me to react a little bit later because I'm not so much focused on the strike and more so focused on trying to get back set again.
Yeah. And it's something we don't want to try not to be overcritical. And again, at the end of the day, you make those saves. And so is it, do you want to hammer it or do you want a good save? It's kind of finding a balance and how we can tweak the technique and put it to the application. But again, and as you move around in these, there's a lot of really good movement. And this last one is a great example of it. As you come, go through really, really tall as you start to approach. Then as he hits, there's no big step. All you kind of do is just drop down and you're set right there, which I think is an excellent spot. Is an excellent spot. The ball hasn't been struck yet. You're really in a comfortable position. And then there's a little bit of a pop-up, but your feet are planted. And we talk about this. From that angle, sometimes with a wide set on an angle, you don't need to take the power step. All you need to do is bring the leg inside to clear it, and that gives you the space to be able to get down and make that save. So every situation is a little bit different. But I think there's a lot of good pieces of that kind of apply to both situations.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Again, and this is another really good one. As it comes across, good, you're set there, nice ready position, Austin strikes, and you're nice and comfortable. Obviously, the shoulders come back a little bit. I think that would be too much for me to say. He's shooting from maybe 12 yards out. Can there be focus to stay forward a bit more? Potentially, but I think you deal with the ball really well. And if you handle this action in a game like this, no coach in the world would have any problem with that.
Right.
And I like this angle, and we'll let it play a little bit. So now you start to see it from the different angles. So I like the depth that you start to come out at. Your starting positions are really good, and you can see a little bit of your footwork and the movement, but comfortable with the feet, good position, relaxed, and you get down to make the save. It's really little point, but I love the end. And it's just getting out on the ball and it's finishing plays. I know you're a huge proponent of creating habits and little things like that, where you're able to make the save and then you have to get out to that second ball. In training, sometimes you leave it. Sometimes we're not focused on that. But in this live scenario, as we get to the end, getting on that second ball is huge to me. I really like that.
I think it's really big. We talked about it a bit last year, because there are times where I will just leave it, and that for me, being 9 years in the game, it may be a bit of a bad habit in training, but it's one of those things where I know I would never do that in a game, right? If I give up a rebound, I'm going to get on top of it in a game, and I've done it so many times that it's a habit now. But for younger goalkeepers who don't have that habit yet, I think it's massive that anytime, unless it's a ball that you've dropped and the ball bounces 15 to 20 yards away, like if there's a ball that's spilled in front of you, it's a quick reaction to get on top of it and build that habit.
Yeah, it's great. And I think there's a little habit, even the ball that bounces 15 yards away, it's not about running, sprinting, and going all the way out to get it, but maybe it's how fast can I just get back to my feet and be ready, because a second shot could come in. And so that's something that you guys do a great job at. And it's just those little habits. And I think over time, it has to come in the culture of our group. It has to come in everything. And so those are big things for me. And I love seeing it when you guys do that. Good readjustment, nice simple ball, body shape, angles really good, and you're clearing that foot, so you're able to get down. And a lot of the things we're saying are really repetitive, but again, it's all about creating habits, being able to take that shot time and time and time again. And it all goes back in goalkeeping, being able to deal with that shot and not give up a rebound is a difficult task. I think it goes into our last game where we played Swope. 11 saves that match, I believe. 10. I was trying to give you too much love. But in that game, you have 10 saves. And maybe 5 or 6 of them are pretty routine. you down and make the save, but it's about not giving up the rebound, not giving up the second ball, where in 2 of those shots, you give up the second ball to goal. And so being really focused and locked into even holding that simple low ball, to me, is a really important, again, creating another habit.
Yeah, I think that the big thing I want the younger goalkeepers to realize, especially like from this, our training ground talk series, is like the goalkeepers at the professional level do the basics every single day, right? So young goalkeepers get to goalkeeper training. Oh, we're doing volleys again. We're doing basic footwork again. Like they get bored with that, but and I used to be that way, right? But that's something that like you can really hammer that in, and that becomes something that you're really clean with. And like you talked about, we're catching the basic ball down to your side clean every single time. Like those are the things that become big in games, right? When a shot's coming right at you, it's a little wet, maybe it skips off to your side, and if you're holding that as opposed to giving up a rebound, those are little things that change games. And it may not show up on the stat sheet that much, or it may not, it may go unnoticed by a lot of field players or other people, just random fans who are watching, but those are the little things, because they don't go unnoticed when you give up that rebound and the ball goes in the back of the net after that, right? So if you hammer in the small details every single session, it may be boring, you may not enjoy it, but those are the little things that show up big on game day.
Yeah, I agree, man. And again, it's just creating those habits, training it, doing it day in, day out. And I think this is the last ball in the series that happens. And unfortunately, I hate it, but we finish with a goal. And I think that's kind of a point. A lot of coaches will say, finish with a save, finish with a save. And you do the exercise and you do 5 more balls. And I think you alluded to it earlier. You don't always get to finish with a save. That's not the way the game really works. And for you, we've gone over it. You finish the action. That was my last ball, and that's it. And there's times early on when we worked together, I was like, 1 more. And you're like, no. And I was like, all right. And then I didn't understand it for a little while. And we talked about it pretty quickly after. And I was like, so in those moments, you want to finish with a save confidence. And you're like, that's not really the game. And I'll be honest, for me, it was a learning moment. And for me, it was something when, you know what, he's right. I don't need to have him do that extra action. This guy has been in the league for nearly 10 years. He doesn't need to do that. It's about finishing, making the save when you've made the save. And I know a lot of goalkeeper coaches, and sometimes when I work with youth, we'll try to finish on a save. But is that necessarily always helping the goalkeeper? Is it maybe making their mentality a little bit weaker in the long run?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's specifically in this clip. I remember the strike. I remember it's a savable ball. It's something I feel confident I can save on a consistent basis. But adding in everything, the day, it's hot. It's towards the end of this session. I'm a little tired, and I think I was a little bit far out on that one. Don't get me wrong, it's a decent strike. It's a good strike from Austin, but it's something I feel confident I can save on a consistent basis. And so it goes into me being in it for 9 years. Like I don't feel the need to go back in and finish on a save, because I know that's a save for me on a consistent basis. But for the youth, I would say, like, not allowing that shot to then dictate the rest of your session. Right, that ball went in. You feel like you should have saved it. You're constantly thinking about what you could have done better. Like, now it's just time to move on, and let's make that next rep, that next step, a good one, a positive one.
Yeah, that's class. I mean, it's a class message for everybody that listens and follows you. I think that's an amazing point. And then the last piece of our session, where we finish, the team's still working. You guys are about to get beat up with a million shots. And as we get fatigued, like Brandon said, I think at times it's important to focus on really, really simple things, focus on some clean handling when we're fatigued. And there's no magic here. It's just 8 balls struck in sequence right in the hands. So now that we're tired, we're fatigued, our body, our mind, everything's gone. How are we dealing with balls in the hands and being able to catch every single one? And it translates into the game. It's the 88th minute. You've had 9 saves. You got to make the 10th one and hold it. And for me, doing these little actions are I like them. I think they're really good for confidence, for fatigue and everything in there. So that's
Yeah,
our whole go on.
I would just gonna add. I agree. Like I think, especially towards the end, I like to do this a lot with my youth goalkeepers. Towards the end of the session, maybe it's a little warm. We've had a tough session. Now it's mental, right? A lot of it's mental. Can you still do the things that you were doing 30, 35 minutes ago? But now that you're fatigued, I especially like to do this when it's wet, because this is when you can really focus, and you really have to focus on that handling. But when you're tired, like you said, 89th minute, games may not be physically draining, but mentally, there's a lot that goes into it. And so now, can you focus for that last, 2, 3 minutes and catch a ball that's coming right at you? Like it's routine. You'll catch it any other time. Can you do it now when you're fatigued, when you're tired? It's hot outside. There's other factors that are affecting you physically and mentally. So,
For sure. And I think
I,
even I know I keep rambling and we keep going on and on and on and on. But then there's the other piece. Even for the server, you're tired. There's ball striking. And we got to kick all the time. I've got to be able to hit your hands 4 times in a row. And what a good moment. And you do this a lot, and this is awesome. When you come out, I'll jump on the left side and you go, nah, can I work on my left foot? And you'll jump in and you'll hit all 4 balls with your left foot just to practice reps. So a little bit of extra piece, something that I dig that you do. So that's good, man.
I think we'll discuss a lot more of that, specifically the distribution of goalkeeper training, maybe on our next episode. But I think that this was a great conversation, a great intro, great start to the Training Ground Talk series. So I want to thank Coach Walzer for breaking everything down for us, putting that together so that we can analyze it. And I don't know if there's anything else you want to actually, give the people your social media information so that they can contact you with any questions that they have.
Yeah, so on Twitter, nwalzer1, on Instagram, Nate Walzer GK. So search me, feel free to ask questions, anything you want. I'm always available. But I appreciate your time, Brandon, and look forward to more episodes.
I can't wait. Really looking forward to it. So that was our first episode. Thank you for the time, and you guys stay tuned.
Awesome.